Hi, my name is Brad Thomas. Welcome to Discovering Your Greatness, the video series companion to my book, The Greatness Revolution. I want to begin this segment by telling you a quick story. Once there was a man who wanted to be blameless and upright. He fervently desired to be a man of integrity, living a life of freedom and love in relationship with all people in the community he inhabited. He met a teacher and became this teacher's disciple. On one particular day, after several encounters with people who were inconsiderate, self-absorbed, and even cruel, he grew frustrated. He resented these people's behavior. He wanted to resist them, secretly wishing they would get what was coming to them. Frustrated, he'd finally had enough. Knowing his teacher was a great man, full of compassion, he longed to know how compassionate he must be to emulate his teacher. He approached his teacher and asked, "Teacher, how many times do I have to forgive my brother or sister who wrongs me? 7 times?" For he knew forgiving 7 times was an outlandish and generous act very few, if any, people would ever practice. "Not 7 times, but 77 times, the teacher replied. The disciple stood open-mouthed, staring wide-eyed at his teacher. After letting the answer sink in, the teacher continued. There was once a man who owed several $1 million to a wealthy and powerful businessman. He couldn't pay his debt. He went before the businessman and begged, "I cannot pay my debt right now. Be patient with me, and I will pay it back." The powerful businessman had compassion for the man and said, "I forgive your debt. You don't owe anything. Go and live a life full of freedom, giving as I have given you." The man was overwhelmed with his good fortune, and he went out from the businessman's office jubilantly. Later in the day, the man came upon another who owed him $100. He grabbed the man by the collar, screaming in his face, "Give me my money now!" When news of this got back to the businessman, he filed suit against the man, and in court he testified, saying to the man, "You cruel and wicked man! You should have forgiven that man his $100 debt. Now before this court, you will have to pay back the millions I had forgiven you." The teacher turned to his disciple and said, "We all have wronged others. All of us are indebted to others in some way. This thought must always be upmost in our hearts and minds. There, but for the grace of God, go I. Hardness begets hardness, and softness begets softness. Inside each of us, we know all the secrets of our heart that if the rest of the world knew, it would be horrified. And so, we must always see the 7 offenses of our brothers and sisters through the lens of the 77 horrors within us. You will never change the heart of another, but your heart of compassion is a bridge some will cross. And as they rest in your heart of compassion and forgiveness, they too, like you, will become one of the 77 warriors of love. Forgiveness. What does it mean to forgive? The literal meaning is to give before, to give yourself to another person as before they wronged you, to treat the one who has wronged you as if nothing has changed in the relationship. Why don't we want to forgive people? Because of the 2 stories most of us are living by that don't serve us, being right and/or looking good. We would rather drink the poison than find the cure. Somerset Maugham writes, "If I wrote down every thought I have ever thought and every deed I've ever done, men would call me a monster of depravity." Do you find yourself in that statement? We know the horror in our own minds, and we're unable to let go of them, so we begin to view others just as cynically as ourselves. We assume the worst about others. Anais Nin writes, "We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are." So what's the solution? We must make the shift in our minds. Yes, we all do and say things we regret that may be just downright horrible. But we also do beautiful things. If we're ever to walk in our greatness, we must let go of our guilt over what we have done by apologizing to those we've wronged, laying down those wrongdoings, giving them away on a daily basis. And we must see and celebrate the beautiful and positive things we have done on a daily basis. Forgiveness begins with love. And the first person you must love is yourself if you ever want to forgive others. You've heard, love others the way you love yourself, right? We call it the golden rule. But it's not really a rule at all. It's a reality. I cannot love others if I don't love myself. I must forgive myself and love myself to forgive and love others. Often the harshest critic is hard on himself, and he holds others to an impossible standard. Hardness begets hardness and leads to the destruction of others and one's own self-destruction. Often this kind of person is consumed by what others think of him. He lives by the two unhealthy stories, being right and looking good. He cares more about what others think of him than what he thinks of himself. If he is ever to overcome this, he must not let the voices outside override the voice inside. Otherwise, he'll be driven by guilt instead of grace. People trapped in guilt operate from the outside in, while people who practice forgiveness for themselves operate from the inside out. Guilt-driven people see duty, but grace-driven people see beauty. Guilt-driven people see sacrifice, but grace-driven people see paradise. Guilt-driven people see pain, but grace-driven people see gain. Guilt-driven people see mess, but grace-driven people see bless. Guilt-driven people think the moment is taking something away from me, but grace-driven people think this moment is making something great of me. When I function in guilt, I don't use the listen and learn technique. Listening, reflecting, learning, and adjusting in every moment to be transformed, walking in my greatness. My guilt paralyzes me. When I function in grace, all my mistakes and struggles serve as teachers, transforming me. And I'm also more inclined to forgive others, learning and growing alongside their mistakes and struggles. Right now, I want you to make a mental list of the 3 most important people in your life. If you have multiple siblings, you're going to have to choose. Sorry. Are you ready? Go. Okay. You got the list? Let me ask you a question. Are you on that list? If you're not on that list, then add yourself to that list. Listen to me. You must be on that list. Just make sure you're not the only one on that list. You know what I mean, right? We must always have a balance between what I call inward-looking eyes and outward-looking eyes. I may look inward to grow in my greatness, and I may spend time on myself, but I always keep in mind that all I am doing within to grow in my greatness is designed to help all those around me in my community and the world I inhabit. I have inward-looking eyes and outward-looking eyes. Make the shift. Change your mind. Forgive yourself. Love yourself. Only then can you love and forgive others. And remember, walk in your greatness and have a great day.